Today I don't see any professional Westerners. Huh? Is there one? Yes. After this little boy, please. Is Sonori? Huh? Sonori? Yes, that's what I asked. Come here once. Speak here, closer to me.
What is the difference between Ghazi and Shaheed?
The Ghazi is the one who fights for the cause of Allah and is not killed during the fight but becomes victorious. Because there is no concept of halfway result in the battle for Allah. Either one has to be victorious or die in the way to fighting. In that. So this is why in Islam there is no third term. Either it is Ghazi or it is Shaheed. Shaheed is the one who is martyred in the way of Allah. So if you go and fight for the cause of Allah, either you have to be victorious or lose your life in the way. When you lose your life, the result, the reward from Allah is this, that He gives you eternal life. So those who die in the cause of Allah are called Ahyaun. That means they will never die. They live forever. So Shaheed is the one who apparently lays his life down in the path of Allah, but who lives forever. And Ghazi is the one who during the course of fighting becomes victorious. Okay. There were two friends of yours whom you didn't introduce this morning.
There was a West Indian friend of mine, Dennis.
There was one of them was West Indian or three West Indians?
Well, the girl who came in, she was West Indian.
Yes, I know.
And there was Dennis. Yes, right. And Dennis, he was the other West Indian. There wasn't any other West Indian.
No, the three is sitting on this side and side of mine. They are going to be not fluent with some words or working in something.
No, that was Corker side in company. Corker side, Habib Corker side. He's Ahmadi from Cambridge.
He's one. I remember, I know him. There's a part of some non-Hindus there.
I can't remember.
Sitting on the left side. But the only three gentlemen who were sitting on the left, I thought one of them was the rest of the two were wrong. One of them is the same who came even the last time. And the boys who came last time.
Yes.
He comes straight to the right group who were given at that day. You don't remember him? How could he come then? Who is the
I don't know. There were others who came to ask, I think,
no, you didn't extend the invitation, but they came. Somebody else did, perhaps. Correct. Now, what's your question, please?
I asked about the Gospel of Barnabas. Christians say that this is not an authentic gospel. That it's okay. This is what I want.
100% correct.
Right. This is all right.
I'd like to ask the concept of yaqeen. As Muslim al-Islam has mentioned it in great detail, some of the books and some time.
Please get closer to the microphone. I can't hear you.
I would like to ask about the concept of yaqeen. Yaqeen. How far is it related to Iman and how far is it make-believe?
Yaqeen can't make believe. positiveness. So how can surety be make-believe?
How can you be sure of the thing? Because you have to answer.
So still it's not make-believe. You can be mistaken in your belief, but make-belief is a conscious deception of belief while the belief is not there. Make-believe is quite a different thing altogether from mistaken belief or real belief. The words you used, perhaps you didn't intend to use them. You said, how can one know whether yaqeen is make-believe or not?
No, the first question is the concept of yaqeen.
Yes.
Because some remember, there's a lot of discussion talking to the people in the Hindu.
Yes, I'll explain that.
That's the basic
That's
question.
right. Okay, yes, please. You know, there are various stages of one's belief which may be true. I mean, each stage may be true, yet there is a difference in shade and depth. Like you see things in a dream. It's not a lie. You are seeing things in a dream, but the sense of reality which you have, which you enjoy at that time, and the sense of consciousness is very different from the sense of consciousness which you experience after waking up. And only those can judge which was dream and which was not, who have seen both these stages. A man who is sleeping in the morning, he enjoys his sleep very much. And a person who wants him to go out and have a walk in the morning, telling him that it's so pleasant outside, so beautiful, and you will enjoy it thoroughly, he rejects such a person's offer because he thinks, he knows positively that sleep is more enjoyable at this time. But the same person, if he gets up and has a walk, then he begins to pity those who are sleeping, and then he realizes that this is real life. Sleep was just nothing as compared to this. So although he was right in both places, when he was asleep, he really did enjoy sleep, and he seemed truly averse to going out and walking in the open. When he was doing that, there too he was right. So it is not falsehood against truth. It is where the level of consciousness varies, and because of that there is an apparent contradiction in two situations. But neither of the two can be called a false situation. You follow this point? No. Yes, I am talking of awareness, and that is exactly what Hazrat Masih Maud is talking about during his discussion on yaqeen. The question of falsehood or uncertainty will later come into the discussion. But first understand the phenomena which he wants to explain. Now he says that when you observe a sign from far off, you may be very right in making some inference. And as far as you are concerned, you have every right to make that inference, and nobody can say that you are false. For instance, if you see smoke rising from far away, you draw the inference that there must be fire burning underneath. You are within your right to believe that. And that is a sort of yaqeen. Ask a person who has seen this, and he can say that I can positively tell you that I have seen fire, because I am very sure, very certain that the fire is there. But Hazrat Masih Maud tells us that this is a sort of yaqeen, a stage of yaqeen, which in awareness and certainty is second to the order of the next stage, which is you not only see the smoke, which is a sign of fire, but fire itself. So that is the second higher stage of awareness, which is not only different from the first stage, but there is more certainty added to that. Although falsehood is added to neither of the two, but comparatively that stage is more certain. Third, Masih Maud salam tells us is the stage of Haqqul Yaqeen. You see the signs, you observe the thing which was emitting signs, and then you put your hand into that fire or get close enough to feel the heat. That certainty is a different type of certainty than the previous one. Previously, there could be another person who was deceiving you. For instance, nowadays there are devices which can emit smoke, artificial smoke, and which can make you believe here, not you yourself but somebody else, makes you believe that there is fire, apparently. But there is artificial electric fire, phenomena like fire, but not fire itself. But when you put your hand into it and see the burning, then even if it is artificial, it is fire. Because all the qualities of fire are present. So nobody can tell you then and convince you that what you saw was a vision. You say, no, I know this. I have seen all the signs and the presence of fire itself and the qualities of the fire I have also experienced. That is what we call, according to the Holy Quran, is mentioned as Haqqul Yaqeen. So there are three stages of Yaqeen. One is, first is Ilmul Yaqeen, Anul Yaqeen, the second is Ilmul Yaqeen, and the third is Haqqul Yaqeen. Now what is the, if another question arises from this explanation, you can ask it again.
The concept will be related to Iman as well.
It's all right, yes.
And also, let's say the first verse in the Quran, La Rayba Fihi, that means there is a way of knowing things by yaqeen, there is a way of knowing things by doubt. No, that's the second concept. Anyway.
And you can take this question on microphone so that whoever who are not there, they also know what to ask.
But he's a psychologist. He's a psychologist.
The second question, which comes from the first question, is that how and in what ways is yaqeen related to the concept of Iman? We believe God is there. Yeah. And also we do a lot of things to confirm the belief, like wuzu, namaz, prayer. Some of it may be ritual, some of it may be real.
Now, there is a similar type of Islam and also drawn a parallel between Iman and Yaqeen and describe various stages of Iman. The first stage is that of Iman al-Ujuz. That is to say, a belief with which you are born, you are not capable enough to judge it from the wrong. You judge right from the wrong in any way. The illicit messes are particularly in the mind of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam when he described this. Imanul Uju Ajaiz, the old wives' faith, that is what he calls it. So the old wives do not challenge it. Whatever they have been born with, they keep it intact. And their belief is very staunch. So strong that they can offer anything for that belief, offer any sacrifice for that belief, yet they cannot convince anyone else because there is no knowledge accompanying it. Their conviction is a born conviction. In itself it is very strong, it is unshakable. No amount of argument on your part can shake them from that belief. Yet if you tell them to impart the same belief to others, they will be totally nonplussed because they never understood through reason. Their faith had no relationship to reasoning and faculty of thinking, and so they are incapable. So it is a very strong Iman, but a very limited Iman as well. As far as the element of Yaqeen is concerned, for that lady it is enough to suffice her. But it is not enough for others. So an iman can be of a nature where it is very strong for the person who believes in it, but is useless as far as the spread of their iman is concerned. Yet another stage can come in the life of the same lady when she is so pious, so devoted to Allah. She offers her sacrifices for the sake of Allah. She is illiterate. Her iman is just like as I have described. Yet she begins to receive signs of Allah's presence through other ways. Not through knowledge. Through dreams which are fulfilled. Through prayers which are accepted. Through closeness of Allah, which she begins to feel. And these things are not only a subjective phenomena, but also ultimately turn into an objective phenomenon, which can be observed by people around. She tells them, this is my prayer and this is my answer, and here is what Allah tells me would happen in future. And that happens exactly in the same manner. And people know that she is a simple lady, she can't concoct things, is not capable of doing such a thing. And the things also happen and prove thereby that this was a message from my own. So this sort of iman has also its stages. It develops into a greater faith and a stronger faith by witnessing exactly on the same parallel lines as yaqeen was proceeding in the direction of a positive, more sure and observable phenomenon. So the presence of Allah can be revealed to every type of faith, however limited the faith may be in the beginning. Then Hazrat Masih Maud tells us that there is another iman based on knowledge. For instance, you study nature and you come to the conclusion that there has to be some creator. Masih Maud tells us that is very similar to seeing the sign of a fire. For instance, you see smoke from distance and you infer that there should be a fire, while maybe it is not a smoke at all. It is some sort of smog or fog or some dust particles are hanging in the air and light is falling from such an angle that a color of grey, a shade of grey is added and you think it is smoke while it is not smoke. So in the first stage of yaqeen, the elements of doubt do creep in. So Masih Maud tells us that this stage of faith is also liable to suffer from some sort of doubts. Because this is an inference, logical inference, and it is not a surety unless you begin to see God. You can't believe in Him as strongly as that old woman who doesn't have a logical argument to support her view, yet her belief is stronger. But this man, even if with a weaker belief, he has the capability of spread his belief around. Because he has got that instrument of knowledge. He can use it himself and offer it to others for their respective uses. So it has one advantage. Now if this man again turns to Allah in all sincerity, he can be treated in the same manner as that old woman has been treated before him, with the result that he also can witness further stages of faith and iman. So similarly, there is a third type of iman which comes from direct guidance from Allah, and that is the strongest. If somebody is recipient of Allah's revelation and he chooses such a person and he speaks to him and he is so close to him that he lives with him, and it's a both-way traffic of mutual love and realization of presence, that is the strongest possible faith that one can have. And this is the faith of prophets, which to a second and lesser degree is also shared occasionally by other saints, but to a lesser degree, of course. But the prophets live in the presence of their Lord, and they know that He is, because their faith is not based on argument, despite the fact that they know the strongest arguments in favor of their claim as well, because they are shown knowledge as well from Allah. They are shown guidance from Allah. All the possible stages of faith and yaqeen join hands in the cases of prophets. So in every respect, this is the most complete faith and yaqeen on Allah which is held by the prophets. Now, as far as the La Raiba Fi is concerned, it has no bearing on this subject at all.
May I ask another question?
Please.
Seems that we are talking about two types of information. One is we know a thing, we have a certain information about a thing, and we make a belief on the basis of it. I can see this wall is right. So that is physical or objective information. And the other side of it is the information which is experiential. I know God, feel God. So essentially subjective.
No, objective is there. This is what I said. You're living there. I explained the whole phenomena when I was talking about the face of a woman whose belief is not based on knowledge, but who believes. Then I told, for the sake of explaining the situation, that she begins to receive revelations from Allah or dreams which are subjective for her, but when they come to be fulfilled, the same thing becomes objective for others. When she tells others that I have received this information from Allah, and that information is not possible for her to get by, yet when it is fulfilled, people know all around, and this is not a subjective phenomena anymore. It becomes an objective phenomena. This phenomena is much more objective in case of the prophets.
What I'm saying is that probably you want to use the term objective for both types of phenomena.
No.
What I'm saying is that one is certain knowing things, having certain information about the physicality of things, as we know by our senses and other things.
Yes.
And the second is the sort of things which we can feel, something to do with our emotional...
I'm only using subjective for this and objective. Now you are mixing things together. This is why you can't understand me clearly. There are two types of objective studies involved in this discussion. One is the preliminary, which leads you to a belief in God. The objective study of nature, which indicates to some, if not to all, that there should be a creator. That is the first objective study, which is left far behind. Now I was talking of a different objective phenomena. I was telling of a phenomena of one person having reached a stage where he is in contact with Allah. Like somebody is very close to a great officer in the government. Now you may not have seen him moving about, going, visiting his places and coming out of the offices, yet you heard that he has close relationship. Now, that is subjective for him, and it has not become objective for you. But when he tells you that I spoke to that man, and this is your work, you want to be done, and this will be done on that day, you go and collect your papers. This phenomena of subjective experience for him becomes objective for you.
No, I mean, I'm not disputing the point at all.
But this is what I said.
So I'm not disputing your point at all. What I'm trying to say is that there is a certain quality of, say, of a belief, which we were talking about surety, the certain quality of it. A woman says she's so sure of God, she only knows very little about God. Another man knows a lot about God, but still he's not sure, so he lacks that quality of thing. So,
That's correct. But that changes from person to person, and they cannot be categorized into 2, 3 or 4 large factors. Now the shades are so many that from person to person the quality of belief and the concept of belief changes. You can assert something with such cocksuredness as if you have gone through all the stages of experience. And another person can describe the same thing so mildly as if he was not sure himself.
I would say,
Yet he would be surer maybe than you are.
I would say being sure of anything except God is stupid.
Huh?
Being too sure of anything except God
Yes.
is very wise.
Exactly.
Now the other point which I was coming to ask,
Yes.
the non-ever theory. It seems to me that the scientific knowledge increases by doubt. Doubt is certain thing. Because all things are sort of proposals as to possibility.
I know your point.
And the Quran says, claims in the very first line, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. I would think that this book says that this book is about that type of knowledge which follows from the knowledge of certainty. Iman.
I explain that. I want to point out, you are referring to the modern discussion about its concept and its helpfulness towards creative and progressive knowledge. It plays a very important role. The moment you get doubt, you investigate. So investigation is the child of the doubt. You nourished before, you entertained before. But the word la raiba fihi does not relate to a situation similar to this. It's a different thing altogether, and I explain what it means. The fact is that to say that there is no doubt in the Holy Quran, to claim this just by itself, is a false claim if you take it at its face value. Because there are majority of men who doubt the authenticity of the Holy Quran. So to say, to interpret it as a claim, as if there is no doubt in the Holy Quran, while the majority of human beings doubt the Holy Quran, that would put the claim to be in a position of unacceptability, and throw doubt on the very claim itself. So it does not mean it, could not have meant it. Secondly, even if you believe in the authenticity of the book, and those who do, when they read the Holy Quran, they come across various verses, one after the other, about which they are in doubt. Had there not been doubt, there could not have been difference of opinion and discussion and all these debates of sectarianism and all that. So some sort of doubt there is. There is no doubt about it. And that is the doubt which is promoting knowledge and discussion. That is the doubt necessary for further study, as you yourself suggested. So nobody can deny that doubt, and the Holy Quran itself is not denying that doubt. It accepts that doubt. What it is denying is this, that Hudal lil Muttaqeen, La Raiba Fihi Hudal lil Muttaqeen. Two types of claims are being made. Number one, there could be a doubt as to what it is, if you look at it from a farther distance. There could be a doubt, and you may conceive it to be a bird of some sort, yet it is a microphone. But if you conceive it to be a microphone, and somebody assures you that there is absolutely no doubt that you are right in that conception, look at it from any angle, get closer, investigate it, ultimately it will found to be the microphone. So it is that sort of certainty to which in one place La Raiba Fihi is referring. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Now it will be read in the context of the first claim. You were waiting for a book which was promised to mankind ever since the inception of religion. Prophets before and prophets of great renown have been promising you that a complete book is going to come, to be revealed. Of that book, Moses has been speaking and David has been singing the songs and so on and so forth. So no doubt that it is that book. It is a claim. It's not a proof, but the proof will follow. So when you want to draw attention to a certainty, first you make a claim. So when you read La Raiba Fihi in conjunction with the first claim, Zalik al-Kitabu, this would be the meaning. Now when you turn it like a kaleidoscope turn and read it along with the second following statement, then it acquires a very different shade of meaning. La Raiba Fihi Hudan lil Muttaqin. The meaning of this La Raiba Fihi would be that although there is no doubt in this book in essence, any investigation which is true, which is carried scientifically, would ultimately lead you to the truth that the Holy Quran did not have any doubt. That is the claim. But at the same time, there is no doubt that this is only for those who have a righteous approach. Hudal lil Muttaqin. Now, La Raiba Fihi Hudal lil Muttaqin can be read together, meaning this. That there is no doubt, but only for those who have a righteous approach. If your approach is distorted, if your eyeglasses are colored, then Allah does not claim that there will be no doubt in this book. That shows that there is a doubt. If there is a doubt in objectivity, then we do not disclaim that this book will be found without doubt. Only we claim this book will be found without doubt if the angle of vision is correct, if there is no colored glass in between your sight and the book, and if your intentions are right and you are rightly framed towards investigation. This is the claim of the book. So here Muttaqin means the first step of investigation, or the prerequisite of investigation in the modern scientific term. It is not a religious term here, because it is the very first term used for the Holy Quran, by the Holy Quran, for those to whom it begins to teach religion. So those who do not know religion, how can they be taught in the highest terms of religion, that is taqwa? So taqwa has a preliminary end, also an ultimate end. In the preliminary sense, taqwa can only mean that a quality of following truth regardless of your being unpopular or regardless of your suffering as a result of that following. When you see light, you have that quality of saying it is light. If you, like Galileo, observed a phenomena and he had to pay heavily for that, but he had the first scientific quality of knowing where the truth lay once he observed the truth. So here taqwa only means this. It is not the advanced stage of religious terminology which is used.
Taqwa means strength.
Strength. Strength of character to recognize truth and the courage to admit despite odds there being against it. Despite there being odds against your admission, if you have the courage to admit the truth and to see and recognize without prejudices. So when I said colored eye view, I meant prejudices. The Holy Quran claims, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. There is no doubt in this book, but it is subject to the observer's condition. No doubt if the observer is righteous, if he has not a colored eye view, colored glass view, and if he is not already bent on certain conclusion to be drawn, And he's so adamant that whether he sees light elsewhere, he will say, no, the light lies here. For those people, the Holy Quran says there will be doubt in this book. Only for the right-minded, there will not be any doubt. This is the claim. Yes, please. I'm sorry, after.
That my question is relating to the same question.
Would you mind?
In continuation with the same question, I have a faith that if you say that there is a fire behind this wall, I will believe it. What would you call that?
That is Imam Azhar.
Yes.
That's the way. Another way.
Yes.
It is born out of experience. It can be born out of experience, and it can be called blind faith. If you know somebody for too long, and you know that such person will never lie, however difficult his claim be for belief, yet you know most certainly that such a person is not a liar, then even if he tells you of something very strange, ordinary people would not accept that without investigation. But it is your previous experience which leads you, and that works like a logic for you. This is exactly the situation in which the Arabs found themselves when Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam mounted a plateau and declared that if I tell you that there is a large army gathered just behind in the shadow of this plateau, would you believe? And all the Arab parents said, yes, we will believe. Why was it possible for them not to have detected the approach of such a big army? That was their experience, not a blind faith. But when he said there is a God and no God but he, then they turned back, because their blind faith in their idols was stronger than their experience. Please.
I wanted to ask a very, very simple question actually, which has been at the back of my mind for a very long time. My name is Samila Nasir Banwi.
What do you need to Mr. Radha?
That's right, I'm his eldest son. I'm his eldest son.
You are the eldest son?
That's right. That's right. So I wanted to know why in Europe there was no prophet. Well, we do not know any prophet appearing in Europe or any divine book. Why was that? I've never heard.
I think this statement is not correct. According to the Holy Quran, there is no geographical region on earth which was deprived of the office of prophecy. Everywhere in the world, to every people, to every geographic unit, and to every nation, according to the Holy Quran, prophets have been sent. So, if you read the pre-Christian history of Europe, you will find that each country of pre-Christian Europe had its own religious beliefs and had its own religious elders in which they believed. But those beliefs were closer to idolatry than to the concept of prophethood. That is also true. But that is also true of every other religion in the world. The true prophets, ready and cut to measure, they are only found in the Holy Quran or in the line which precedes. That is the line of Judaism. Elsewhere, what you see is a phenomena like Jesus Christ in between the two phenomena. The Holy Quran's concept of prophets and the Judaism's concept of prophets are in alignment with each other. In between you see a different phenomena, a prophet turned into God. That is the real phenomena which took over everywhere else in the world and distorted the figures of prophets to something closer to the concept of Allah than of that of a prophet. That is what happened everywhere, with the result that if you do not have access to their original books, so that you could draw your own conclusions and prove that originally they were prophets and not idols besides Allah, you just don't know them. You just have received a history in a package deal. And you have to accept that there were no prophets but just various gods and so on and so forth. But wherever you know, this is the result which I am telling you. And that makes us sure that our general principle is correct. For instance, we know about Jesus Christ positively, that he never claimed to be a son of God. Bible still proves it, to the contrary of the belief held by the Christians. Yet he rose to that Godhood under the observant eyes from all sides, from the observant eyes of the Jews and the observant eyes of the Muslims and the world around. Somehow yet the figure of Christ escaped into the higher order of Godhood, and we see that phenomenon and observe it. And we know that Krishna was a reality in India and he was not a God. Yet he is turned into a God under our very observations. About his historical reality we can't have doubt. He was a historical reality. And we know of the wars as well, of Kurul and Pandu and all that. And we know that he was a man. Yet he is presented like a God. So wherever we had access for investigation, we always reached the conclusion that originally those who were prophets were turned into gods by their own people. So that makes us understand the previous history of every religion. And wherever there is a sign of religion, there you will find the same phenomena happening. And this is but natural. It had to be like this. Why? Please sit down. For another 5 or 6 months I have tried to explain this. This is very interesting and very important. Because there are two phases in the histories of prophets. One phase of extreme hatred and rejection. The people whom a prophet addresses do not want to bow their head to the yoke of an outside ruler who commands from outside as if from above and suddenly becomes the absolute dictator over them. He begins to control their earnings, their finances, their way of life, their love, their hatred, everything. Interferes into the very depth, nature of life itself. So it is not acceptable to them. What they say, what they turn back and say, look here, we know what you are. You are less than a man. And you are claiming to be more than a man by claiming that you are a prophet. This is how they treated Jesus Christ. In the early stage, they exactly said this, that you are not even a man because you are illegitimate. And you are talking of being a superman, how can we believe you? So this is the first stage. But once they begin to believe in him, there is a psychological reaction to exactly the opposite side. The swing of the pendulum is now moving in the opposite direction. And they begin to themselves to elevate him beyond the status of man. The previous attitude was, you are not even man, you are below man. And now they say, no, you are not man, you are above man. So the resultant is exactly the same in both cases. The rejection of prophethood. The point is that the man does not want to bow under the yoke of Allah's rule. He wants to be free, he wants to do what he pleases, and is not ready to succumb to a foreign pressure. In the first instance, he invented this excuse that you are not man, how could we bow to you, you are less than a man. And later on they invented an excuse for the rejection of future prophets, in fact. Now they would say to the next prophet, the previous one which we accepted, he was more than a man, he was superhuman. All his miracles and all that, his way of life shows that he is something situated between man and Allah, but not an ordinary man. No, this is why we bow to him. We are too upright and too strong and too powerful to submit to your will, to man's will. So we never submitted to man anyway at all in the past. If you come as a superman, if you come as something beyond human beings, as we accepted the earlier one, we will accept you as well. So the resultant of both this distorted phenomena is exactly the same. In the first instance, it ended into the rejection of the previous prophet. The second phenomena is preparation for rejection of the second prophet who is to come. And it all begins all over again. So this is the history of acceptance and rejection of prophets among all religions of the world. And the phenomena of distortion is common to everybody. Now I think it's time for prayer. Now prayer we have said already. All right, if somebody wants to ask a question, yes, Madhu side, please.
Yaqeen, it's not a question, but if with your permission, sir, I would like to say, if I may, an observation about Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani and it relates to his tour to Europe, while you also joined that tour. In 1955. There was in 61, there was an English family, Mr. and Mrs. O'Neill. If Mr. Bajwa is here, he will remember that family, Mr. Bashir Bajwa. And he was a controlled tenant, paying very nominal rent to the mosque. And that is the instruction of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani, that flat should be vacated, because Hazrat wanted the whole building exclusively for the occupation of his family. Also, I said to Mr. and Mrs. O'Neill, would you be good enough now to find another alternative accommodation? They consulted their solicitor and they said, no, we are controlled and we have the protection of the law. Then I consulted late Hazrat Aziz bin Saab, and he said, well, in that situation we should consult our solicitor. So I approached my solicitor and he said, I'm sorry, they have the protection of the law. I wrote the same thing and I still received the instruction of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih that at all cost that flat must be vacated. And rather a very word of displeasure that while the relation of the Mughals had been come here and they have been accommodated, while the Khalifatul Masih is coming himself now say his excuse station that the family doesn't know. Well, anyway, I approached again the solicitor and he said, I tell you, would you like me to write to the leader that this is, in this country, law is the God, and there is no possibility to get him out, that family. And Hazrat said, if every effort fails, then ask this family that we give a written promise that that family should go in a hotel, and we will pay the whole and the total expense. And when we go, they will come back. And there, my solicitor says, if they have consulted their solicitor, if the moment they come out of the house, they lose the protection of the law. So they said, no, at no cost we will not go. And so late Aziz bin Saab, and we were, of course, very much concerned and worried. And then as a last resort, I remember it was nearly about after midnight, the Azizian staff said, then you should approach the mayor and write a letter, say, and take memorandum with you, written reply. So I telephoned and so I arranged eventually and saw the mayor. And the mayor saw and he said, we have long association with the mosque and we are quite aware of it, rather proud of it. But this is something which is, you are putting me in a very difficult situation. But nevertheless, he referred me to Sir William, who was the chairman of the Housing Committee. And I went. Then Sir William telephoned me next day. And he said, we are making an exceptional case, an offer of a new flat to this family, Mr. and Mrs. O'Neill, and they can still say refuse, they can refuse it. So you please ask them, we are as a special case, and we do not mention it in the press. So I said to Mr. and Mrs. O'Neill, and they said, I said the flat was in Putney Heath. And they went down, and before that, Mrs. O'Neill, I still remember her words, and she said, I really don't understand why just for the sake of one person all this fuss is being made. And he said, before that your family, this whatever you believe with the Holy Family, Mia Muzaffar came before her staff. And he said, they stayed and no much pressure was put on us. But I said, why for the sake of one person such a big fuss is being made? But when she saw the flat, and she came and she accepted it, and while she was going and she said, Imam, we will be ever grateful to you. I said, not to me, you the same person of the same person for whom you said the self was being made. And then I said to my solicitor, and he said, the council has this prerogative, but I am very surprised that the mayor chose to exercise this power for the sake of an Asian of your father against an English family. And he said, it's very sad, beyond my understanding.
I'm glad to find you still there. Yes, sir. I'm glad to remember that normal
Inshallah, tomorrow I will give you.
what are you reading?
Yes, tomorrow. We had a question that during discussion with one of our Christian friends, he said that the Christ is perfect. He was not a sinner in other words, as compared to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And he gave the argument that Muslims are being instructed to invoke the mercy of God upon Holy Prophet Muhammad. This is the reason he gave. Would you please explain on that?
Now, as far as that goes, you also invoke, with our prayer, why you invoke Allah's mercy of Jesus Christ himself. So that puts them in the same bracket.
But they don't have.
So they let them not, but the point is, as far as this argument goes, this falls. Because the Muslims are told to pray for mercy of Allah for the Holy Prophet of Islam. This is why he is a sinner and Jesus Christ is not a sinner. This is no argument. Because the Muslims are also told to pray for Jesus Christ himself. And then in the Bible, in the New Testament, we find this mention that when somebody said, you are pious, he said, no, I am not. Only it is Father who is pious. So he himself denies. What better testimony than that is required for his being, whatever sins you call the nature of sins, he himself admits it in so many words. That I'm sinful and I'm not pure and I'm not pious because it's only one, the Father above, who is pure and pious. Right? Yes, please. Are you from England? You can ask your questions later on. Tonight I said particularly for the benefit of those who are paying a short visit to England. And this friend, Mr. Abdullah, Tahir Abdullah is it? Yes. He is from America. So if someone from Germany or somewhere else who is on a short visit to England wants to ask a question or two, I'll be happy to answer the questions. Otherwise we'll call it a day and the learners, yes please, come on. The learners can ask as many questions later on, please.
मेरा सवाल कुछ लंबा है। इस तरह के दौरान तबलीग एक नौजवान ने मुझे बड़े गुस्से से कहा कि इस्लाम मुश्किलात का मजहब है। मैंने अपनी इस्लाम के मुताबिक उसको जवाब दिया। उसने कहा कि तमाम इस्लामी ममालिक एक दूसरे से दस्तो गिरेबान हैं। जिस इस्लामी तलीम का तुम जिक्र करते हो उसकी अमली सूरत कहाँ है? हम तो मुसलमानों को हर जगह मुश्किलात का शिकार करते हैं। ऐसे लोगों को कैसे मुतमिन किया जा सकता है?
How do you reply? Your hand is up. What was the argument which came to your mind as helping to convince him?
I told him that Islam means peace and it is a message of peace, and we are here to tell to the people that we are here to give a message of peace to the people. He was not satisfied.
The answer to this question requires a much larger treatment instead. Because the question pertains to a field which cannot be treated in short answers like yes and no. You have to give a whole philosophy and the whole supporting argument for a person, the questioner, to begin to believe and get satisfied. And also you have to prove your case by examples. So nowadays a Muslim finds himself in a very difficult situation really, because of the warring sections of Islam and because of their own moral degradation and so many factors. For a foreign observer, it's very difficult to believe that the reality lies differently elsewhere. So the question is no doubt difficult, but in historic perspective, this can be solved to some degree. The fact is, not only historic perspective, but in a different perspective of relationship between belief and act upon that belief. This is very important, which will help us to solve this problem presented by this gentleman. If a people have a good teaching, while they act upon that teaching, they rise to great heights. And if the teaching is bad, while they act upon that teaching, they are found at the lowliest place on earth because of their teaching. When they leave their teaching, the result is exactly the opposite in both cases. If the teaching was good in the first place, and for the follower of their teaching have stopped acting upon it, then they would fall rather than rise. In station, in achievement, everywhere they will be a decadent society, because they are leaving act upon a good teaching. And vice versa will also be true. If the teaching was bad teaching originally, the moment they begin to show their backs to that teaching and turn away from it, they will begin to rise and ascend. So the effects of desertion of teaching will be exactly the opposite in both cases. Now this is the comparative phenomena I refer to, act upon a teaching and the belief and its relationship. Now we go to the history, and in the perspective of history compare Islam with Christianity. There was a time when Islam was truly being acted upon, and all the Christian historians agree with us, the early few centuries. If not in entirety, most often than not, Islam was being acted upon. And the graph tells us that that is exactly the time of the rise of Muslim empires and their rise to wisdom and knowledge and every sort of greatness that can be conceived by human beings. when their action confirmed with their theory, they rose, not fell. The moment they began to turn away from their teaching and themselves deserted their teaching, instead of rising, they began to fall, until we find them in this place where they are found today. Not because they are acting on Islam, because they have long deserted Islam. The history of Christianity tells us a very different story. We know that at the time of Renaissance, just before Renaissance, let's say, at the end of the dark ages of Europe, Christianity was very staunchly believed and acted upon. It was the religion of all states, and they took it so seriously that almost the entire people of the European countries not only believed in Christianity, they acted upon it. And those ages, by their historians, are described as dark ages. Then comes the era of revolt and rebellion against Christianity. And do you know what they call that age? Renaissance, an age of new life, an age of light. Now, exactly the opposite results are witnessed. In case of Islam, the age of light is that when people acted upon Islam, and the age of darkness set in when they deserted Islam. Here it is exactly the opposite. It is a fallacy to believe that the present rise of Christianity is due to Christianity. It is due to the rejection of Christianity. Christian civilization is not Christianity at all. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It is a secular civilization which evolved after centuries of experience, after they had rejected in reality all that Christianity had told them to believe in. They had revolted against it. So if you first understand the phenomena, a relationship between views and actions, and then put it to the test of history and look at it from a historic perspective, then you will be able to convince a logical-minded person. Only that much I can claim. But if somebody is bent upon not accepting, then you are not responsible for him.